Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. How's my audio?
Sounds pretty good. I'm pretty excited. I've been following you on YouTube for a hot minute, so this is pretty exciting for me.
Ah, that's great, man. I've been following you for like a week since you told me about the project, and I think it's really cool what you're doing. So I'm in.
Yeah. So, you probably heard all the other interviews, but like this started off as a challenge for NaNoWriMo, which is I think it's a nonprofit here in the U.S. where the goal is to get a first draft of the book done, just done in a month to encourage writers to do things. But I've realized after talking to a few more people, this book is sort of ballooned into like a bit larger than I thought it would be. Um,
Hmm.
I'm taking a class from Neil Gaiman. He's written stuff like The Sandman, famous author here in the U.S. But it's just like, oh wow, I see this got bigger than I thought it was. But anyway, um, so I've been following you for a minute. And I think it's pretty cool. So like you've become kind of famous for like your longsword content. I think in the early days of
Yes.
Dark and Darker, you were one of the first people that popularized the use of parry riposte off of mobs, but like pocket carrying a mob,
Yes.
right? So
The PVE parry. Yep.
right. So I've gone through some of your content recently, and I have one burning question. So I noticed that you haven't used like in your last video or two, and I just grabbed through it for a minute,
Hmm.
but you don't use shield mastery. Like, why is that?
Well, I was actually just listening. I just went for a walk, like I mentioned, and I was listening to your Sparky interview, and I do use shield mastery. I was thinking, what the hell, man? This is not true. I don't use counterattack. Maybe that's the confusion.
Well,
But
I think what it was, maybe it's your last video was a lot of arena clips, and I'm pretty sure you didn't have because your aposts are definitely like a lot slower, right? Like I've been
yeah,
told by other longsworders that there's a counterattack isn't worth taking unless you reach a certain action threshold. Like you have to build that or
sure.
dex because it doesn't go to the second riposte, right?
Well, my reasoning for not running counterattack is other perks are just more valuable, right? You need Swift, and I put a lot of value on Sword Mastery and Barricade. Um,
Barricade
so
is that because of the
yeah,
PDR nerfs or like walk me through it?
I just always ran it. Yeah, the extra survivability, you're in there swinging. It's saved my life so many times. Whereas like the extra 10% movement and action speed, you're already hidden like a truck. It doesn't make that much difference. You're going to connect with the riposte. So it's personal preference. Yeah.
Okay, because I could have swore that like at least in some of the arena clips, like your riposte were definitely like slow enough that you could get like you could in like a lot of your 1v3 clips there, but that's probably just your last video
It
bias.
it could be two things. Yeah. I mean, recently I've definitely always used shield mastery. In the past, maybe I was just bad and I wasn't, but it's definitely like you should use shield mastery if you're using longsword. That's yeah, that's just the best perk, hands down. It's the first perk I equip on a fresh character.
Interesting. If you want to get some, so people have actually discovered more recent longsword tech in Sparky Kawa's Discord. Like somebody
Hmm.
figured out how to do the wyvern, and that was from one of the guys just hanging around in there. So there's still
Oh, this is
tech.
fresh.
Yeah, like there's I think it's
Is
like a
this
month old maybe.
the tail whip parry
Yeah,
since
one of
the
the
change?
yeah that's by Dwarian, I think, is the guy who figured that out. But I was in chat with
Nice.
him when he figured it out, and he's not even a longsword main either. He was a cleric main for a
Yeah,
minute.
I should join more communities. I don't have that many hours playtime, so I should really join these communities and learn from the resources.
Yeah,
Saves me
there's
a lot of time.
yeah. There's some crazy guys in there. But let's kind of get to a bit of the more the question and answer type here.
Should we do a disclaimer first that this is going to be the word longsword is going to be said 500 times during this interview?
Oh,
I'm like
100%.
a one trick. And can I also just quickly say that I'm looking for a YouTube video editor or like a partner, just due to circumstances. So if anyone's out there that plays Dark and Darker and is good with video editing, reach out to me. So I need you.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, thanks for that.
So like let's talk about the early days of Dark and Darker. Like, did you play during like the playtest? Because I know a lot of OG players were around for the playtest. Like, did you find the game through the playtest, or did you come when the game came out later on Blacksmith?
So I don't remember like specifically what all the playtests were, but I came in the playtest before we had to torrent the game. So playtest two, maybe that was.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah. and that was just one of my friends. I was around his house. He like jumps between games, like he's always playing something new. I like to play one game and get good at it and learn everything. So we're very different in that regard. And he showed me this game, and he was a Mordhau player, and he was playing Barbarian, and the dude was he was in there, kicking ass. Because he had all the fundamentals down from Mordhau. I jumped on. Um, the game I was playing previously to that was World of Warcraft, classic World of Warcraft. I always play like stealth, and anyway, I was rogue, and I was getting my ass handed to me. As a rogue, without knowing how to play rogue, people were just stat checking me, right? So that was my introduction to the game. It was hard, and I think I took that as a challenge, and that drove me to get better.
So, you said that you were kind of like a rogue main at first. Like, so you're obviously a fighter main now. Like,
100%, yeah.
Did you try wizard or other classes early on?
So I did learn to play rogue. Originally, it was my first class, and I realized that I was trying to like get in and out, and I didn't have the reach to do that. Once I learned that I could just stick to players and sort of dodge in their face effectively, I had a lot more success. And then the later playtests, I turned to wizard just because it felt like the most skillful class in the game. You had so many spells, movement options, and it just felt like there was more than, the melee in Dark and Dark was quite simple. So I jumped to wizard, and then later on, it must have been an Olgi video that put me onto longsword, and I was like, oh, there's some skill expression. I can do things with this. Yeah, I was longsword ever since, longsword fighter.
Okay, interesting. Have you tried like longsword on warlock at all, or like a hybrid caster lock or anything like that?
I've toyed with the idea. I've tried a little bit, especially when the demon form got buffed. But it just it's never felt fun. Like when I was winning 1v3s with the demon form warlock when it got buffed, and I could have just been left clicking the guys. It didn't feel satisfying. And the fighter perks are just made for the longsword, so it's a no-brainer, really.
I gotcha. So do you remember like was a longsword like always your weapon of choice, or did you like try other weapons? Because like the halberd's kind of a hard weapon to use as well, right? And there's like fighter can use any weapon in the game.
Yeah. No, I started playing fighter because of the longsword.
Okay.
So there's never outside of I think I had a little when Bard first came out. I played Bard for a little bit with the Rondel dagger before everyone was abusing that. But again, I think they nerfed Bard, and it was kind of just annoying to play at that point. You had to like do more inputs, and it was just too much. So
yeah, I feel like Bard is probably like a little overtuned, but because he's annoying to play like that, there's a lot of resource management that people can't. Like, not as many people play him, and so people don't like care as much. You know what I mean? Higher skill ceiling.
Yeah, I don't think it's a higher skill ceiling, but it's just more work, and people want the easiest, most effective way of playing the game. We see it every wipe, so it kind of gets slept on.
Interesting. So I've asked this to everyone, usually like later on in the interview, but I don't really want to make combat or focus, or balance like a focus at all. But it's an interesting question.
Sure.
So there's this video that came out. I'll probably link it in the description or something if I remember. But it's called the Mechanical Arms Race That Kills Video Games. And basically,
yeah.
You've probably heard me reference it before in a couple other interviews. But it's basically like, as video games become figured out, the average skill of the player rises to where it's no longer fun, right? Like Civilization 5, or if you play with old players that, just know what they're doing. Or, this happened to League of Legends early on, and they, to get around that, they fundamentally change the system every couple of years. And so, like, Dark and Darker, do you think that maybe, like, the game is stale because people are too good at it? Because the only people that play it are hardcore players now, right? Like, it's kind of a... that kind of game,
I don't think the skill of the average player increases that much, but the information and the knowledge of the average player increases because there's so many resources out there, and people are kind of forced into a position where they either join the meta or they die to it, right? And as a longsword user, it's very off meta. It's a test of willpower. It really is. You're going to die a lot learning. You're going to get killed by whatever's the flavor of the month over and over again, and If you can't handle that, you either quit or you join the meta, right? So I wouldn't say it's like the average skill goes up. It does increase over time, of course, but I think it's the knowledge of what's the most powerful is more accessible, and that's what's kind of blocking new players out from having their fun.
That's interesting because like like I mentioned with Sparky previously, it's like before when you fought clerics, they were pretty free. Like that
Yeah,
makes it was really reliable, and almost everyone you fight, unless they're a new player, everyone's dragging, and they know they're really good at it, right? Like people just
I mean,
figured out how to deal with it.
yeah, flange is still free, even if they're dragon.
I don't know, man. Like
Well, it's my experience. I feel this way. Morningstar, you got me on that. Yeah, that's BS. That weapon.
like you
They
still get
drag
hit by it,
it.
even they'll drag it. You can parry and it'll still
Yeah,
hit you in the head and kill you.
I've tried everything, man, with the Morningstar. There's probably something I'm missing. But in that point, yeah, dragon and excels and all that. Then in like it's turns into like a fighting game where you have 50-50s and mix-ups and stuff, and you've got to get a read on your opponent. And to me, that like mind game part of the game is so interesting. That's what I really enjoy. And just to expand on that a little bit, you can cut me off if I'm talking too much.
I read.
I come from I'm quite old for your average gamer, but like 15 years ago, maybe longer, I used to play Team Fortress 2,
Yeah,
hence the
same.
spy in my name. I was a spy main, another off-meta, has a bullshit one-shot mechanic, right? uh, maybe why I always play stealth characters. But to land a backstab, it required like there was like trick stabbing, right? If you play the game, you know. And trick stabbing was just about manipulating your opponent's movement and understanding ping and your ping and the server's ping, right? And once you understood how the ping worked and where you were actually registering, like where your stab was registering on the server, you could do crazy, crazy things. And I think that kind of carries over to Dark and Darker a little bit with the longsword parry. Like you're not blocking your screen, you're blocking into the future or where you think you need to be.
Right.
So
That's a little bit of like the desync block tech that's become a little bit more, I think, widely known. Sparky made a video
yeah,
about it that made it like more mainstream, I think, recently.
yeah. Mad was one of the first people that put me onto that.
Mad Robot?
I never bothered. Yeah, yeah. Mad's a gamer. I've only played with him once, maybe twice. But I want him to make more content because he's pushing things hard.
He was
Like he does crazy good things.
wasn't he the first person to beat Warlord with like white gear? Like
Probably.
HR. I'm pretty sure
He's
he was.
mad, like his name suggests.
Yeah, he actually
I
hangs
tell him
out.
every time I speak to him.
I think he hangs on the Sparky College Discord like frequently.
I need to get on that Discord, man.
telling
I'm
you,
on the
man.
Augie Discord.
Yeah,
Is
Augie's
that where the cool kids are at?
yeah, Augie's doesn't he comes back to the game when it's fun, which is hard to blame him, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I've just come back from like a nearly month-long break. Um, just burnout is real in this game, especially when
is.
you're not winning every single fight, right?
Yeah, like it's funny, like I've done basically everything in the game. Like I've it's funny, like I've bought like 3 artifacts maybe, but I've actually never run them myself. So I'm a
Give
cleric.
it.
So it's kind of funny. Like I'm a cleric main to a longsword main, right?
Hmm.
And he's on the solo grind right now to level up and up his skill, and in
Your
HR.
character?
No, just like he's just on the grind to become a better solo player, and he
Wait,
doesn't.
sorry. Who's he?
Oh, sorry. So that'd be Sonder, the first interview that I did, right? So
Okay, I haven't watched that one, but he's your friend. I think you referenced him in
yeah,
some of
yeah,
the other
yeah.
videos.
So part of the reason this book is being written is actually I sort of like have jokingly written like the lore for our group and how we've like progressed, and it kind of is what gave me the idea for this book. Like a bunch of stories combined together to make like one interesting novel.
Yeah.
Because he's really good. Like he might be one of the top 100 like long soldiers probably like in the game currently. Well,
Sonder?
yeah, he's really good. Like
Shout out to him.
yeah. He's insane. Like every time there's a new piece of longsword tech, he's always showing me, and I'm like, that's pretty cool, right? But like I was a cleric main for him, and trios is like we kind of lost our trio partner. That was
Yep.
pretty good, and so I've really not like so we were sort of high level, and I've sort of devolved into just playing low roller because it's just what I want to do.
That's fair, yeah. Well, respect to you for pocketing a longsworder, because not many people want to do that nowadays.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of funny. I actually wanted to ask you about this. So, like, you still play trios with longsword? What's that like?
Oh, I don't really play many trios outside of arena. Um, I mainly play solo, just because I'm from the EU. I don't know if you can tell from my accent. I'm from England, but we don't have many European content creators, or I don't know. I'm not in many circles here, so I mainly play solo.
I gotcha.
The people I trio with are Americans mostly. If
Yeah.
I do that, and that's rare. So yeah,
So, like, the ping difference has got to be like pretty high, right? Like, it's like plus 100 for you, then, right? Usually, if you're playing
sure.
with them.
It's yeah, like I think a lot of longswords. I'm not going to call anyone out, but a lot of longsword users complain about ping, and of course it makes a difference. But going back to the TF2 stuff, you kind of have to play around the ping rather than just you have to accept that it's there, figure out how bad it is, and play in accordance to, the hand you've been dealt. Complaining about it doesn't fix anything. And when I go to NA, I can feel the ping, but it's not too bad.
Interesting. Interesting. I wouldn't have considered that. Because I guess if you think in terms of things of like, if you're always desync blocking, because even with the longsword, right, you have to extend your, like in your mind, right, you have to extend your hitbox out a few more inches maybe to compensate for that, right? So
Yeah,
that changes. It's interesting.
yeah, it's just a feel-based thing. I don't know. It's hard to understand where you are on the server.
Okay. So moving on. So like, what inspired you to start making YouTube content about the longsword?
I think I just felt like I was performing well. Felt like I was doing something different, and yeah, I wanted to share that, inspire people, and show what the weapon can do. I always like to push off meta things as far as they can go. So definitely originally inspired by Augie, um, and then I wanted to showcase what was possible.
Sure. Do you want to talk about the early days of the longsword? Like, what were your initial impressions when you first picked it up, and its mechanics and some of your difficulties?
It's crack. Yeah, you hear that ding and you one shot someone. It's like goddamn. Yeah, I can never go back. Difficulties? I don't. Difficulties were just there wasn't resources like there is now explaining all the different angles and how the weapon works. So it was just running into that wall until we broke it down. So I mean that could be considered a difficulty, but it was also very rewarding to figure stuff out yourself.
Sure, but like how did you go about mastering the longsword? Right. Like, did you use any specific like drills, strategies, or like particular like training regimens where you just threw yourself against all the mobs and everyone until you kind of figured it out?
Yeah, the latter. I think it was when Ruins first came out, and on that, I don't remember the gear situation. At the time, it got weird with the gear. You could use any gear, and then you could use no gear. And anyway, I don't remember that. But Ruins, like now, you could skip a bunch of modules and just rush PvP. So I would just buy. There wasn't no any Squire at the time. I would buy 100 longswords. I would go in naked. I would fight, and just that was it. I would stream all day, well, after work, and just push fights and learn that way. Just trial and error.
Interesting. Was there any like moments along the way where like you maybe had some rivalries with some other YouTubers or just other people that you constantly saw? Because the game has a small player base, right? Like we
Yeah.
like one of the things our group did was we fought Augie a couple times until we eventually beat him, and that was kind of like
hmm
our arc of oh, we beat someone who's actually really good, right?
I bet for your friend that was huge, right? Because he
Oh
was a
yeah,
longsword
yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. For me, nah. I wish there was a cool story, but in Europe, we there's not many content creators, um, especially not anymore. So I've basically never ran into anybody that I recognize.
I gotcha. So like
Yeah.
even though you play on NA, you've never run into like a lore or like Yami or any of those guys.
No, I don't play NA very often.
Okay, I got
Just
that. That makes
if I'm
sense.
outnumbered by the Americans, if it's 2-1, I'm like, okay, I gotta go over.
I gotcha. So speaking of fighting more than one person, so in your last video, you did a lot of like 1v3 clips that were pretty cool. Kind of walk me through your thought process about how longsword enables you to do that, and let's say you come up against a team
Mhm.
in low rollers, gear more or less being equal at that. Like, how do you do a 1v3 with a longsword?
So I think I play longsword different to the other guys. I wouldn't consider myself like an honorable knight. More like is it Bronn from Game of Thrones? That scene where he's like, they're like, you don't fight with honor, and he's like, no, but he did. They know the guy he just killed. I use ambush tactics. I was one of the first people to like take off potions on the belt because I quickly realized that having these giant beacons that glow in the dark on you is not good. It's like a thing that the dark and darker brain recognizes instantly as a player. And it's in the name, right? Dark and darker. So a big thing about winning these fights as a longsword user is getting the jump, having a favorable engage, and target priority. Right. So if there's like a wizard or like a ranger, well, if you don't get the jump on that guy, uh, then his teammates are just going to sit there spacing you, like feigning a threat, and you're going to get slowly killed from the range. So target priority is a big thing. And running away is a huge, great strat. Should definitely try that. You don't have to take every fight. If you're at a disadvantage, just reset. You can also use disengaging to set up PvE parry, which I think I'm kind of built a name for myself around that. If you're running away and they think you're low, they're chasing. It's great. You can really catch them off guard.
Yeah, it's always amused me how you have some people say you just carry a skeleton Pokemon with you.
Yes, it's like a secret necromancer build.
This
Did you ever see my bingo series where I had a bingo card and I had to land a parry up every single mob into a kill conversion?
No, I've not seen that. I should watch that. It sounds amazing
It's
though.
it's like one of my worst performing videos, but I love that video so much.
Interesting. So, I know a lot of longsword fighters have like I don't know if you'd call it honor or like the code of ethics, but it kind of seems to be like what's the word I'm looking for? The group thing to not do is to use range against people because it's kind of seen as like you know,
It's honorable. Yes.
scummy tactic. So, do you use range outside? Because like they'll use crossbows, but they won't really use longbows or recurves or anything like that. So, are you the kind of longsword fighter that would use like bows and just anything at your disposal like that? Or
I've
you,
never used weapon mastery because it's just seemed like a waste of a perk. Like you can have a melee perk instead of that. And I feel like if you truly want to improve with the longsword, you're not going to like give yourself a melee disadvantage. I used to do the Skinny Pete thing, the no range. I did that before I even heard of Skinny Pete. I just refused to use range because my mindset was, why use range and wear people down if I'm going to go for like the one shot riposte anyway? Like, what's the logic in that? But I played with Mad once, and I actually felt really guilty because I was kind of throwing. We were playing like High Roller, and Warlocks were just like infinitely kiting, and I definitely in solos play a lot more passively, whereas he wants to pressure the Warlock and get on top of them, which is both strategies work, but if you're not synced up, he wants to push, I want to back off. It didn't work, and I basically said, if Warlocks don't get nerfed this next patch, I'm going to start running crossbows. And they didn't get nerfed because this was when they had 1 year, 6 months of being on top in solos. And yeah, I started using the crossbow after that. And I think in Arena as well, you have to. You're trolling if you're not nowadays because it's just range comps.
yeah, it's like like as a longsword, the thing that really gets me is if you don't get to the wizard or the ranger. Man, rangers are so strong right now with backstab and shotgun. It's a little insane, I think. But
Yeah.
like if you don't hit them once or twice, they will just like you have more burst damage potential, but they have like
Mhm.
really consistent pressure outside of your range. And so if they're like most of them are fast, and if you
Mhm.
just don't get to them, you're just dead. Right?
Yeah, they're
Fireball,
the
they can
fights you don't
burn.
you don't take. I think a lot of longsword players need to learn this. Um, just like when to take a fight and when to push. If there's 10 meters in front of you and they've got a range weapon, just find another way. Um,
Well, sometimes you don't have the option because, like, if you're running a PDR fighter, which is obviously like, the better version of the fighter these days, despite all the PDR nerfs,
Hmm.
like you're really slow. You're maybe like 190, like it's maybe 300. And I used to joke and say that like if a warlock or wizard found you,
Yeah.
you're just a walking tin can to them, and they're gonna heat you up and eat you. Free loot, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have had my struggles with warlocks and wizards. The crossbow helps a lot. You just have to keep distance and not commit. Basically, can't pull out a melee weapon unless they really screw up.
Right, but
One thing that really helps with that matchup, I'll probably get this nerfed by talking about it. But I'm sure it's more known now. But it's the utility quick sheath. You heard about that?
is that the one where you have like a key or something and you hot swap to the key first and then pull out your sword or something like that when you
Well, yeah,
run?
to put it away. So putting away your weapon to chase a warlock takes a long time. But if you can swap to like a throwing axe or a lockpick
Like does it work on a torch?
instantly, yeah, the torch is like if you've thrown all your throwing axes, it's not quite as fast. And then you can sheath that like much faster, and you save like you would be surprised how much of a difference things like that make to closing gaps.
I actually did not know that. That's interesting. Like
Yeah,
like
our little secret. Surely nobody's listening right now.
yeah, like I knew you could do it with keys, and I thought torches were the same. I didn't realize it was slower on torches. That's interesting.
Yeah, lockpick's the fastest. Then I think the frannies, and then torch is like when I'm completely exhausted, and I didn't bring a lockpick.
You know what's funny is, I'll say it now that it got nerfed, but for a while there, doing quests as a cleric was really annoying, and so I was kind of like a
Hmm.
longsword guy for a minute, just kind of like picking it up. And I found that I would bring like 5 windlasses with me and hot swap them,
Oh,
and
oh, who am I
barbarian
talking to?
barbarians and wizards and warlocks and bards were all a lot less, they didn't have as much of a superiority complex when I kept whipping
Hmm.
them out, right? Or even a good longbow chip,
That tin can like turns into like a transformer and just
Yeah,
pulls
pretty
out a Gatling
much.
gun.
It's
Yeah.
like the thing is, man, like when windlasses had like, when they were like 53 damage for a white one off the squire, it was like, it's like taking a hunting, like an elephant hunting gun out and just one, two, three, even if they have a cleric, it's like that cleric is hurting, like they weren't so high and mighty after that, but
Well, they play different. They play scared,
oh yeah,
and
yeah, especially
rightfully so.
when you keep whipping them out too. It's like how many does he have, right? So there's a bit of a fear element, but you can't really do that anymore. So I don't mind saying that, but
By the way,
it's
like
funny.
good that you can't. Like, what kind of game are we playing where you just have 5 of these in your ass? It's,
You could go into high roller too and kill people with them. Was what the funny thing was, right? I don't care
Mhm.
if they have 200 health and 50% PDR. Like I'll chunk you down.
Yeah, it's the like how the meta evolves and shifts is super interesting. I watch Lieutenant Sama. He's a really cool guy. He's
I
played with the
love him.
longsword in the past.
I re-
His content is amazing. But can I just say that like the meta shifts within like content creators. So he's been doing like 400 gold cutthroat rogue builds, and he's just annihilating wizards and warlocks with cutthroat and rangers, right? Because they can't do the shotgun when you silence
I did
them.
not know that until I saw that video a couple days ago. Actually, I
But
did
like
not know it would cancel shotgun.
he's like showing a way where you can take no gold in and you can make massive profit, and as a result like the meta shifts and like you're seeing less rangers, wizards and warlocks in high roller. And for me as a longsword guy, it's like, hey, fantastic. Let's get some melee fights.
Yeah,
So
because
it's just interesting, how it shifts like that.
yeah, the one thing that's nice about that matchup though is the longsword is it's 2 taps to the chest and they fold, right? Unless
Yeah.
it does his 200 HP build that Party Chip did or something. Have you seen that video? I think Party Chip did a 204 HP rogue build.
Jesus.
It's like
No.
it's basically like all complete bis. Like you can get a little higher, but it's like really hard.
I think I
Um,
saw. I didn't watch it, but I saw it pop up in the feed.
he has like a 49% PDR or something. So he's basically like a barbarian, but with a dagger. It's really funny.
That's great. It's basically like fighting a bard with good gear. Then,
Dude, bards are tankier than you think they are. I'm telling you. Like,
yeah, when you don't like riposte a bard in the face twice and he's just gear diffs you, it's like, what do I do? I
the thing
landed the
is,
rapier parry. What else can I do?
that rapier also has no sour spot. I don't know if you know that or not, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's basically like a better dagger, I think. But like
yeah.
if you have a bard that stacks like 50, 60 PDR with like 9 true damage, they're basically a ranger with that survival bow. right?
Hmm.
Because the dex is so high, and they're
Yeah,
max.
they're crazy. They're
They're always
crazy.
move speed cap too.
It's not a good matchup. I'll say that much. But I would much prefer fighting them with rapier than like Rondo dagger or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm actually pretty good at the rapier parries, and it catches them off guard. So Rondo dagger, I haven't found a consistent way to parry that.
I,
I've done it, of course, but it's terrifying.
I've seen people like they'll take like pavises or something like that and just back them
Hmm.
into a corner and hold them there.
Good. Yeah, my most recent video, I think I pinned a rogue in against that Skelly Axeman and
Oh,
just held there. Yeah,
let him know what he did wrong. That's so funny.
exactly. Yeah, give him time to think about his actions.
That's kind of funny. I think the scariest mob in the game has got to be Thanos. You know, the Skelly Axeman,
Oh yeah.
or I don't know what's the other scariest thing in the game. Black skullbats, maybe a bunch of them.
Oh, when they mob, yeah, like
Ghost
any
King.
elite nightmare mob that kind of is like thrown into like an already sketchy situation. You know, like one nightmare skullbat when you're already fighting something
Mm.
technical. It's like, what the hell? Yeah, pressure. And I like that about the game. PvE is very simple, but like if you're not careful, it will get you.
Yeah, that's always been an appeal of this game to me, as well as like it's like the learning curve is like there's a lot of stuff to learn, and so I've sunk like probably 2,000 hours on like just one account.
Damn.
And like part of the allure of this as well was like Warlord was not figured out. High Roller
Hmm.
Warlord was a skippable boss even by like a lot of content creators for like 6 months until Sparky kind of like figured it out for the public mind, right?
Yeah.
With every
Yeah, I mean,
character.
I don't fight him still, to be
Really?
honest. Yeah, I mean, I only have, I think I'm just reaching 1,200 hours now, which is way less than most content creators. I like work it out to like repos. I think I'm like 14% of his playtime.
Wow.
So I mainly focus on PvP. So I've done every single boss. I can do every single boss pretty comfortably, other than Banshee. I've never tried it because like I mentioned, I took my break recently. Um, and the Warlord. I've tried it like twice and I've died both times because I didn't study.
So
So
I've heard from pretty much the everything I've heard from all the other content creators, or well, not content creators, all the longsworders I've talked to is that the Warlord's the best boss because it feels like an actual duel, right? Because
yeah.
there's a lot, especially High Roller, where you have to learn your positioning where you are relative to his like
Hmm.
little explosive pools,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's an
so
actual fight for
yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah. It's like it's not entirely choreographed, but it's like a high skill thing. So in the Warlord, it's
Yeah.
kind of like your mark of, like you beat the PVE of the game, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think Spectral Knight is like his baby brother, where
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like it's
yeah.
a fun fight. Like there's loads of different
I think
parries and positions,
I
and
think
it's
there's
fun.
14. I've heard that there's like 14 different possible chains or moves he can do or something like that.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, I think it took him like 3 or 4 days to figure out sort of how to do him.
No, no way.
Like playing all
He's.
day. Yeah,
I think I learned him in 3 hours. I was streaming, but
that was when
I
he
might have
first
come in a
first
day
came
late.
out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He changed.
Oh no, I'm just saying that like just being in the Discord with a few other long sorters, just kind of like watching them. I think it took them like they were really really reliable at it after like the third day when he came out, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sure.
So, um, so does your in-game character have like a backstory or specific like any role-playing elements that you have to it?
Um, I don't really. I don't really identify with like that. I when I played World of Warcraft, I actually played on a roleplay server, and I can get down with the RP. But I don't have any like specific lore with my character. He's kind of honorable. I think I won't go slaying Timmy's. Um, Definitely, there's a pursuit for like perfection. Um, uh, but yeah, I haven't like wrote out some D&D story backstory.
Sure, that's fair. So like your character, where would you say you currently are in your dark and darker journey from like where you started to where you are now, and like what you look forward to in the future?
Well, I'm at like a point now where I had like big burnout, and I'm at a point now where I either like push and completely commit, or I just like find something else to do. And it's looking like I'm pushing forward. I recently just invested quite heavily into my PC. My processor was like 10 years old, and you can see in my video quality, like everything's like kind of low quality. So that all arrived today.
Oh wow.
So like I'm kind of committing to YouTube and Twitch a lot more. That's why I mentioned the editor, just to like real life circumstances are kind of forcing that. I still have a full-time job. I work all the time. But yeah, so I'm basically committing more. I want to make a lot more YouTube content, and in game, what that looks like, I don't know. I just want to improve with the longsword. I want to get better at PvP. I want to showcase what the weapon can do. I think I play longsword a bit differently to maybe other guys. I try and like do creative elements, hence the PvE parry. I was the first person to get a drum parry kill, or try that, as far as I'm aware, on record.
Interesting.
Soma made a trailer where they showcased that in one of the official Dark and Darker trailers.
Was that you that did that?
A couple months
that
ago.
Clip?
No, but I'm taking credit for that, right? Because he got me on the Darkest Hour podcast, and I know he watches my stuff, and then it's a coincidence, like 5 months later he puts it in. Come on.
I wonder.
Go on. Sorry.
I wonder how many times that they did that clip, because that.
I'll message him. I said, yeah, if it took you more than an hour, just call me next time.
So speaking of fights, what's the most memorable 1v3 encounter that you had, and how did that unfold? Like, was it with some friends?
1v3?
Yeah. Was it like with friends, or were you like playing solo?
I'm always solo, man. It wasn't a 1v3, it was a 1v2. But like, I pulled. It was during the bingo. I was trying to get the parry on all the mobs. Actually, yeah, okay. So I was trying to get the parry on all the mobs, and I pulled the rock golem from the center of the ruins, like a few modules away, and I parried him into like a nice 1v2 situation, like back to back. That was pretty satisfying. Cyclops as well. I double parried the Cyclops into 2 kills. People like a duo was trying to invade me. And I've recently had an arena game where I was fighting some other streamers and like guys in like the elite Dark and Darker Discord. Some try-hard, sweaty guys. And I was queuing with randoms in arena, and they kicked our ass. And it was on the ruins map where you can go down and mine. Mm-hmm. So they were kind of like BMing us. They like killed my teammates, and they were just mining, trying to stall me out. And I went down there, and it was the worm that spawned, and I parried the worm into a kill on the barbarian, and then 1v3'd them in that, and that was kind of satisfying.
That's pretty cool. Do you remember which content creators it was?
I don't want to say. They were cool. I went into their stream when we were both done, and I just said like GG, and they were like, they were very humble. They were glazing me a little bit, saying like their barbarian switched to longsword after that game, and we humbled him a little bit. So they were cool, yeah.
I think it'd be funny if the barbarian could use longsword. Like, I think.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, the strength. I mean, you have no dex though, right? That's the only thing.
You haven't got the perks, right? You basically have sprint anyway because rage. But
I think it was better for a minute there than sprint, right? It's like 15% got rebuffed.
Yeah, I have no idea the balancing. They nerf sprint and then they buffed that, and we had that barbarian meta. That was during my break, thank God. I took a break during playtest 68, which apparently was really good.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into that with anyone else, but just because it's so polarizing. But basically, 68, they buffed the loot where like you could even get, I think, uniques off of like the pile and stuff. I don't know if you get artifacts though, but getting purples is like where you get blues previously, and it was really good. And then they just, changed all the gear, and then changed it back.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I heard really good things about that, and then they changed it. And then 69, like I read the patch notes, I was like, I'm so glad I'm taking a break.
Yeah.
I think so. My take on that was they publicly addressed in SDF's Ask Me Anything was the first time they addressed cheating as an issue. And cheating in this game has been a massive reason why I took a break and had burnout.
Really?
I've
not encountered like The only thing I've encountered is maybe like again, I play low roller and normals if I have any gear
Yeah.
and a
Hmm.
that's it. But like I've only encountered reach hacking and maybe ESP and like because in this game cheating is not as bad. Unless they're playing ranger or
Yeah.
something, it's really not
Yeah. Yeah.
as bad. Like especially if you
You're not
have
getting
good
one
all
shot, right? So
right.
it's like you have a way to like you can play it around cheaters and still win. They
Yeah,
don't just instant win.
it's not really as impactful as other games like Rust or something.
You're not going to notice it as well a lot of the time. I've been like pre-fired a few times, and I think ESP is probably more happens a lot more than people are aware. But yeah, I sort of burnt out during the whole Wilson thing. Shout out to Wilson, he died. For everybody else, he tried to save the community, and they just burnt him.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, that was
so
a interesting moment in Dark and Darker Histories. I think it was like the first YouTuber beef.
yeah, yeah. It was interesting. But what I was actually saying, not to derail too much, was I think patch 69 they were trying to combat cheating by making gear less valuable because people cheat for maybe in their country economically they're not so lucky and they can make a lot of money through cheating. I think ego cheating is a very small percentage of the cheats.
Hmm.
It's mainly RMT. So I think that playtest was a pretty drastic approach to try and handle cheating. And other than the Redditors who loved it for some reason, uh, it was just a mistake outside of that. So
I
I'm glad
think
they finally reverted.
I think that part of the reason I'm not really playing like my longsword friend Sonder, he still plays occasionally, but like there's like three reasons I'm not really playing right now, and I'm working on this project instead. Um, is part of it was that patch, but they also re-rolled all gear twice, right? So like
Mhm.
I think the big mistake with 69 was they got rid of the reason to go into the dungeon, right? Because
Mhm.
Squire gear had purple effectively. Like there's no
Yep.
reason to go get gear. So I mean
Sure.
that would have been fine. Some of the other changes that they made would have been fine, but they didn't respect my time. And
Hmm.
part of me wonders like I don't think they really know what they're doing with like in regard to running this as a business, right?
Yeah,
Because
they need to swallow their ego and hire some people that understand business and communication more.
I think it's
Uh,
I don't well. There's a couple things.
Direction. Yeah, I mean we could probably talk about this all day.
Sure.
Uh,
The reason I wanted to talk about it a little bit more is I actually brought in Lord Collector. I don't know if you watched that interview. So he runs, the Artifact Discord, right? Like the thing where
oh no, I didn't know that.
yeah. So Lord Collector is kind of an important. He's kind of like a shadow merchant in a way. Like he runs. I think he said at one point they've had like 2/3 of the whole player base during most of Dark and Darker's lifespan. But basically, the reason you cannot buy artifacts, um, or gold chests even on the marketplace is because keys are valued as a high end currency, right? Because it's just there's gold inflation and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
all the artifact trading is more or less done through his community that he built. He doesn't really trade it himself, but he's facilitated um, the community doing it there in like a trusted
Okay.
way. So, I asked him, I'm like, do you think that your group contributes to RMT? And he's like, no, not really. If they find RMTers, they ban them, et cetera, et cetera. They're a dime a dozen, right?
Hmm.
But it's interesting that you brought up cheating and gear diminishment as an issue that they tried to address. And
That's the most logical answer. Like in my head. Otherwise, they're just catering to like redditors who have got like 5 hours in the game, and like you say, it diminished so many other aspects of the game to try and make something more balanced that didn't need to be there.
yeah, I think well, okay, so there's a couple things I did want to bring up is like, I follow pretty much all the content creators pretty closely. The Dark Star, I think I've watched all of their stuff. But if you listen to like, I've talked to Odin before, and I've not talked to Soma yet, but when I get a few more of these done, I might reach out to him. But basically, it seems to me like the lawsuit is taking up the majority of their time. So like, any new feature that they have to make can be, I assume, can be called into court. I'm not a lawyer or anything. So like,
Yeah.
if you have to code something, you probably have to code it in a way and then document, explain each line what it does to someone who's not obviously like
Hmm.
technical. So I imagine that that takes 4 times as long to make anything. And this is everything that they make: skins, everything. Oh, you stole this idea from us 3 years ago.
Sure.
Just
Yeah, yeah.
despite the asset being 2 years old in the Unreal Engine, right? It's like it didn't even exist before the lawsuit. So there's that. That bogs them down. And I think that like there's a Terrence and SDF have this thing where they need to attract new players, and so like you know they tried something radical to squish the gear to like change that, but I don't know, like it was just he obviously had like a radical change, I think, that he felt like
Yeah.
he needed to make, and so it ended up being really bad because there's not really been any content that's new. Like Ruins is half, I think somebody did like six of the some modules are all the same or something. Like it's only half redone, and it still has some of the issues that the previous ones do, like spawn rushing with Rogue, and like you
Yeah.
can still stand up and snipe
So many
people.
spots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the crows don't even work in half the spots.
Which
They
is
should. But I
weird.
think they're fixing that. I
Yeah.
think the patch 69 would have been received better if they didn't combine it with barbarian buffs
Oh my
and
gosh.
the health
Yeah.
squish. Because like nothing mattered at that point. The game was so empty. Just play barbarian, one shot people. That was the point.
The
Go
thing
play
that
Call of
really
Duty.
got me is, like I said, they re-rolled my arena kits twice, and so my abyss became useless, and I spent a lot. Like I don't play a
Yeah, yeah, it's your
ton.
time. Yeah, exactly. Same.
Play
So
after
I
work.
appreciate that.
It's like if I'm a normal guy that just plays after work and does this in my spare time, it's like, why am I gonna play if all my gear is gonna be useless again? Like it's so like I said, part of me is a little frustrated that they don't know what they're doing. They don't treat it as a business. They treat it as like employees that became business owners, right? And
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
this great book. It's called The E-Myth Revisited, and I think anyone who it talks about that exact thing where people who think that they're good at the technical work, right, of making their product, but they don't know how to run a business. And
Yep.
it's a good book. I think that people should read if you're gonna do that, because it goes through the downfalls of like
It's a
all the
hard pill to swallow, right? Because people don't want
yeah.
to. It's like their vision, and they don't want to compromise on that. But there comes a point where like the whole
You
community
have
is
to hire
saying, "What
people.
the hell have you done?" Yeah, like they need to, and they definitely have that balance wrong. Like, there's no doubt that they keep making the same mistakes, and it becomes kind of unacceptable for a business at a certain point.
Yeah, like it's interesting though. Like I don't want to harp on this too much longer, but like in this
Hmm.
book, it literally talks about like the employee that becomes the entrepreneur and then hires some people, and then it all collapses on them because they don't delegate properly. And
Oh yeah,
it's more or less kind of what's happened to Iron Mesa, but a little bigger scale. But that's a
it's
you know
it's kind of funny because
it's a business book, so no one's probably gonna read
I
it.
I only read business books when my friend forces me to. But like I, growing up, always like had a real bad taste in my mouth about management. I had really bad experiences growing up,
Right.
where I felt like management was just always out to get me, and like
Yeah.
I was the little fish, and I think some of those concerns were valid. But as I've grown older, I realized the importance of management and how how much of an important role a manager is in a business to keep everyone aligned and focused on the same task. So yeah, my mindset's definitely shifted on that as I got older.
Yeah, Sam. Which let's move on from
But
this.
by the way, yeah, I have like all night, so it don't feel like you have to cut the interview short because we're waffling on because of my time. If you got to
Oh,
go, that's fine as well.
oh no, no. It's just this stuff's probably not as interesting to viewers. So
True, true, that's fair. Sorry to the listeners.
no, it's all good. It's just interesting to me. But um, let's see here. Let's see, we've gone over that personal growth. So how has playing Dark and Darker and the Longsword in particular changed the way that you approach the game and like just other challenges inside of Dark and Darker?
How has using the longsword changed? Like, I don't know because I only used the longsword, so it's like uh, I definitely I've definitely had to approach fights knowing that I do not have the advantage and sort of you know understand my role in the dungeon and then where I am. I'm not deluded thinking I'm the big fish. I'm just gonna go destroy everything. if I see a ranger who's like kitted or like a warlock, yeah, it's definitely like been a test of I don't know, like testing the ego. You can't have an ego and use the longsword. That's just kind of facts.
Interesting.
Yeah, sorry, I don't think I understand the question fully, but yeah,
No, that's kind of what I was looking for. That's interesting. You can't really have an ego and use the longsword. That's interesting. Like I've seen some people have an ego, and then because they'll, like whenever Rondell dagger that's hard to parry
yeah,
is, not optimal for them. They get really frustrated or
sure,
refuse to use. This is kind of a complaint I've had to some of the longsword users, and it's like, you have a crossbow, you have
hmm
weapon mastery, you have the solution to deal with wizards or, pretty much anyone else because you're basically a ranger in plate, which is arguably better in some
yeah,
ways,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I think
And
so.
it's like people just don't use the option. They're like, it's not fun. But I'm like, you're mad that you're not winning,
Yeah,
right? And so it's just,
yeah, yeah. It's not a rational approach at
it's
that
kind of like
point.
this, a little bit of this holier than thou code of honor thing. And it's like you said, it's like, the guy I killed had honor. I'll bring in 5
Yeah,
witnesses
yeah.
because it's like, it kind of reminds me of that scene from the Joker in The Dark Knight where he's sliding down that pile of cash and he burns it. And he's like, it's cheap, bullets and gasoline. That's all it took to make you guys upset. As he burns the pile of money, right?
Yes,
It's like,
it's yeah. I mean, you can't really be mad at people for not following your arbitrary rules. And I guess I did sort of suffer through that in the early days. I think I'm very patient. I've been gaming long enough where get my ego in check. Um, but yeah, like dying 10 times in a row on a night, like that's not going to feel good to anybody. So it's easy to like lash out and look for excuses. This isn't balanced. This isn't whatever. But that's not healthy at the end of the day. If you're going to commit to doing something a certain way, you need to understand what that commitment means and act accordingly, or act productively. I guess would be better to phrase.
sure. What, what advice would you give to new players picking up a longsword?
The same as every other longsword guy would say. It's just getting your reps in. Um, Nowadays, you have such an advantage on like the OG longsword guys, where there's so many great guides and show montages and all kinds of things showing what the longsword can do. You can study and save yourself so many hours in the dungeon. But ultimately, it comes down to just practicing, studying and practicing, which is a really boring answer. But that's like there's no shortcut in life, so that's the answer.
Are there any like common mistakes or pitfalls that you could tell people to avoid maybe with a longsword?
Oh, like being a parry goblin, not left clicking,
So
um,
why don't you talk
the
about that a
movement
little bit?
tech. Oh, being a parry goblin.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, just because the strongest part of the longsword is the riposte, doesn't mean holding it is gonna work. If you're getting hit and people are obviously swinging for your legs, um, disengage, come back, put some pressure with a left click. You pressure them, they're gonna stop swinging your legs. They'll have to hit you in the head, and then you can land a high parry. If you're just sitting there with your guard up, it will work on bad players. Good players are going to drag around you. So don't be a parry goblin. It's not a good idea. Um, Other advice, the movement tech I mentioned, that helped tremendously in certain matchups with the utility. Definitely get used to doing that whenever you sheath your weapon. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just study. Studying is so important. Subscribe to my Twitch and YouTube. Watch all my videos. Yeah.
So in regards to movement tech, maybe like for newer players, so do you mostly run plate these days, or do you run like a speed dex build? Because movement speed is pretty important these days. Like like some people would say like
Yeah.
310 is like the new minimum, right?
Yes. So I used to run just naked all the time, and then they buffed PDR, I think, or they buffed Swift and reduced the movement penalty on plate. And at that point, I was like, all right, goddamn, I got to start running plate and Swift. So what I would say if you're building a longsword kit, I try and get 5% action speed plus sword mastery to bring you to 10%. Just seems to be like a sweet spot, and a bit of fizz power. But your priorities should be hit points, move speed, and armor. Probably in the order of move speed, hit points, armor.
Interesting. I know some people that run like dex builds, and they really like 25 dex is like minimum for what they'll do, right? So that's kind of
It's fun, and it's kind of like it's a shift in it. It's like you're shifting expectations there because people see you swinging and they think, okay, great, now I can swing harder, and you might be able to land a parry you otherwise wouldn't be able to parry. But I think just like as a core build, I'd recommend what I said, and then experiment with, what you favor. Maybe you're not one shotting that guy, so you build more physical power, or maybe you're not landing the block because your action speed is too low. It's just preference at the end of the day, and that takes practice and experience to see what you like.
interesting. I remember the coolest parry I got was when barbarian Bardishas were like two-shotting everyone,
Hmm.
and I did my first. Have you ever seen Samurai Champloo at all?
Is that an anime?
Yeah,
I'm not big on anime. I've been watching Arcane if that counts, but no, sorry.
yeah, close enough. No, but anyway, there's a scene where this guy, he's like it's like the end of the show, right? It's like some there's like this swordsman apprentice who's like better than his master type of thing, and he his master's brother or something is like better than him, right? And so it's like
Hmm.
supposedly unbeatable. And there's this scene where he allows himself to get stabbed, and then that's how he gets him, right? And so I let the Bardiche
Okay.
like stab through me because
Yeah,
like
you can.
there's that parry that you can do on the Zweihander skeleton where you turn like completely around and look up and then grab the parry off of your handle, right? On
Hmm.
his handle.
Yeah, that's my go-to for Zweihander. Is the 180.
Yeah, so I did that on a Bardiche and I killed the guy even though I had like 1 HP left, and I was like,
God damn. Yeah, the 180 parries is just nothing but style. I only really do those on. Um, God, I forgot the names of weapons. Um, why have I suddenly forgot the name of the? All right, what's the sword? This is so embarrassing.
the Viking sword,
No, no, no. It's like a scimitar.
the falchion.
Falchion. How did I forget that?
I don't think anybody
Yeah,
does that
now
anymore.
everything I said is just can't be trusted. Yeah, 180 parry on Falchion is
What?
fun. Yeah, you can because it's so horizontal, right? So if
Interesting.
you do it for style points or if they're too close to you, because it has such a wide angle. If they're like really close, you have to basically aim behind you to parry it. So a good way to like make up for that space you don't have is to just 180 or lean fully back.
Did not know
And
that.
felling axes as well, the same. If they've hit you once and they're on you with Achilles, all you can do is 180 at that point, or you're just dead. So,
I had seen
um,
people do that with the felling axe, but that's so risky. It's like,
well, you're dead anyway at that point, right? When they're on you like that, so
yeah,
you'll never win the trade any other way. So it's sort of a desperate move. If you're trying to do it for style points and you want to risk it, the setup is to run away, run in, run away again. So they kind of you condition them so they know you're going to run in again, and then on the
interesting.
second run in you 180. So it's like longsword is about reads and mind games and just understanding uh, the server pretty much.
Interesting. Have you ever done any like longsword duels?
Not really. I want to sign up to one of Augie's longswords. He's probably his next one. Um, I don't think I'll win, but it'll be fun. I think stuff like that is more about just being part of the community than it
It
is
is.
winning. So,
It was interesting. I'll tell you though. Like I watched that whole thing.
oh,
So
did you participate?
no, a couple of my friends did though, and so one of them actually ended up winning. Funny enough, it's one of the guys in the Augie's disc, not Augie's. It was in Sparky's Discord. One of his mods actually. I think it was SCP Origami. But this was when multi-classing was
Yeah,
like a
I know
new
him. He's
season,
cool.
and he backstepped like twice,
Hmm.
and he like used the momentum from his backstep to like steal a parry off of this guy's poke, and just like basically
Oof,
danced around him and cut his head off with like a double
that's
riposte.
cool.
I was like,
That was a fun time.
what the heck, man? Like that's crazy.
I was running like rogue with double jump, weapon mastery, backstab, tumble
I just didn't
with
play
longsword.
when multi-classing was out. It was just
It was fun, man.
for the first day.
Surprisingly, tumble is actually really good in longsword versus longsword because you can
Really?
like engage with the poke and then you instantly like animation cancel tumble and they can never catch you. And then backstep is great for carrying a riposte further than they expect you to.
Yeah, like it's actually crazy how close you get to people. Like people will like look
Hmm.
down and look away if you're too slow with that riposte.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they can dodge it if they're good, if they time it right.
yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I used to play wizard. I like caster characters, obviously. But like one thing I do is for my longsword main, right? I like buff and viz, the whole thing. But I
Oh
found like
yes.
carrying light orb was actually like sometimes more beneficial than playing cleric. Interestingly enough, just so he could see where people were, right? Because the game's there was a patch like a year ago where they made random torches turn off, right?
Yeah. Is that still in the game?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I like that.
But yeah, so like carrying light orb as a wizard just to like for the longsworder actually won us a few more battles. Interestingly enough, because like I said,
Yeah.
like our longsword guy is really good. Like he as long as he's alive, he can usually 1v2 or 1v3, right?
You just have a lot of faith in this guy.
Well, I've always played. I basically only play. I've only played my like 1,500 hours with him, right? Like the other bit I do solo or questing, but it just is punches above his weight, right? Pretty consistently,
Hmm.
but
Good. That's what I like to hear from the longsword community because we are like a band of brothers.
it is. It's just hard to get people to like want to have a longsword in main when it's like, oh, you're not playing Rondell Fighter or whatever's meta, right? Like shield, I would imagine arming sword with shield is pretty good. It's like I talked to Todd Father, right? Like he's an interesting guy. Like he's a little polarizing to
Yeah.
some people because of well, I'm not really sure honestly. Probably he has a
I
I'm
don't
gonna
watch
win.
that much of his stuff.
I'm
Yeah, he plays to win. I
yeah,
think.
bit sweaty probably is why he's like that. Like he has like
Yeah,
I'm
maybe he
gonna
was
win
toxic
attitude.
back in the day, but I don't watch enough of his content to dislike him. I think I saw a clip when he played with Poshy, and Poshy was being like super toxic, which is they were just like stat checking people and like talking smack like 3v1, and I was thinking,
That's
why?
just
Like,
that's how
I ain't got no
games
time for
go,
that.
you know.
Yeah, I'm too old to like listen to people play like that though. Like, I don't have time for that. But I will say about Top Father, he does make good guides. Might seem like
Yes.
simple stuff, but like he does like how to gear, what to run, and the videos are good. And I think he should definitely keep doing content like that.
He's one of the few people. So the reason I wanted him on was, I've had everyone I've had on is like a little bit different thematically, or people I just find interesting. And he's one of the few people still left making content for like high level, like 100K kits and stuff that talks to you the way he thinks about things, right? So like he's one of the few
Hmm.
people that will actually go down and be like, okay, I'm playing front here. I activate this. My teammate does. It's like playing chess, right? In a way with trios.
Yeah,
And he's
I
one
would
of the
say that
he's
mechanically, I don't think he's that good of a player. Like, no
really
hate to him from what I've seen. Yeah, I think you put him in like a game of Counter Strike, and he would struggle.
what's a different
But his
game.
decision making and like knowledge, he's probably one of the best players, undoubtedly. So I'm not throwing shade. There's definitely like younger people who are like more mechanically skilled than him, and definitely more skilled than me. Like, you know, um, but yeah, decision making is very good.
Yeah, but like I said, the reason he was interesting was he's like he's basically a squad leader personality, right? Like, and he talks
Sure,
about
yeah.
how hard it is to find people and find people who still want to play the game and training people up to be good. He's one of the
Mhm.
only people that talks about that still. So that part was interesting.
Yeah, and I mean we're in completely different like niches because I do not take in expensive kits on longsword because it's just like donating gold to like the
Right.
flavor of the month. Like, why would I take a 10k kit in and then just auto lose to a warlock? Like I would much rather take in my average kit when I do high roll is like 700 gold to
Oh
1k,
wow, that's so cheap.
and then when you kill someone and you get like you kill a druid in bear form because you parry him like back to back, and it's like he should lose that, and you just absorb his 10k kit. Like, if it was real good. Like, and that's what I love about Dak and Daka. It's not fair, and you have to act differently and like react to the situation. And I think that's what makes it beautiful. There might be 2 players, 3 players. There might be a ratty rogue, gear difference. There's so many decisions you have to account for in the moment, and that's part of the skill.
Yeah, it's almost like you're in a dungeon with hostiles
Yeah, and it's just like,
and you're looking for loot, or you are the loot.
yeah, I like pretending to be the loot and then absorbing people. And I think that's like the longsword sort of plays into that massively. You can punch up hard with the longsword.
Have you
Just
seen
the nature of the weapon.
Have you seen those videos going around where people will they'll basically have like the zombie skin with the coin emote out, so their arm is extended, and they'll walk up to people completely naked, and then they'll pull out like a Zweihander, or you play it on barbarian or a longsword or whatever, right? And they'll
Is
just
this a
like
new
attack.
trend?
No, people have been doing it for a minute, but before it used to
Yeah,
be people would pretend to be like sword and shield
skellies.
skeleton, yeah, skellies. But people have figured out you can do the frost skeleton or the zombie skin to look like a farter, right? And walk. And if you have the coin emote, the coin flip emote, the end of it is I think your right arm is extended, so it
Yeah,
looks,
that's one.
yeah, so it looks very similar to it. And like they'll
I
go
did
into
that in
high,
my most recent video, I think.
yeah, and
Well, most
so
recent, like 1 month ago. Yeah, it's fun to do, but you're naked.
yeah, or the one I've seen is that's kind of funny is this guy would take like the season one demigod skin, the black skelly, with
Mhm.
the cot, and he'd go in a corner next to like another skeleton body and lay there, and then voice chat to people and scare them
Ah,
because I can't figure out
you
where he
know,
is.
um, when the camp, the sleeping emote first came in,
Yes.
I used to do there was some tech you could do where you could equip an item and then press F to cancel that equip, and you would instantly stand up.
Oh,
So
interesting.
what that meant was you could find any shadow on the ground and become invisible, especially if you ran the skelly skin and didn't, oh, you can't have potions on your belt or anything like that.
Hmm.
That made for like a super fun flanking playstyle.
Completely
Uh,
naked, all risky.
yeah, completely naked, but like you get on their backline and it's just like you're having a great time, and that was fun to do. Maybe a bit of a bug exploit, but I think stuff like that isn't that serious. It's not that broken. It's just a bit of fun. If someone kills me or something like that, I think, all right, you know what, fair play.
Yeah. So, like, looking ahead a little bit, like, how do you see the Dark and Darker community evolving from this point forward? And like, in kind like, do you see Dark and Darker like growing as a game, or do you see it as
it
kind of like it might be on the downtrend? Because like the player numbers are down a little bit.
uh, it depends what SDF is cooking. If he keeps cooking the same recipe, we're falling off big time. If they get their act together, then I think it can do great things. It's still like there's no game like this. The closest game like this is Tarkov, and they are so different. I think you can take a lot of great things from Tarkov. You can have more interactive quests. Maybe the quests aren't the best in Tarkov, but like the quests are better than Dark and Darker.
Mm.
Um, but like the time to kill in Tarkov and that stuff, like no, I get that out of here. Just take the good elements that work within the genre, and don't take the bad stuff, and don't take the cheating from Tarkov as well, please. We don't want that.
I've seen some good suggestions. Like Lord Collector, I think had one where he pointed out this might have been on a couple of this might have been on the Darkest Hour or something, but RuneScape actually got rid of their problem with armed tiers by selling gold.
Selling bonds, right?
Yeah, or selling whatever their currency was. Right.
Um, I mean,
Because
it
it kills the ability for these guys to make money. Right.
it doesn't get rid of RMT, but it gets rid of the cheating that's behind RMT, right? Uh, it could be an interesting option. I honestly haven't thought too much about the solutions. But yeah, maybe. It
Like
doesn't sit well with me, like paying to win essentially at that point. But I guess people are already doing it. The damage is already done.
yeah, and it's just you're killing because at that rate you can just charge a lot for gold, right? Like, and kind of puts it
It
might help with some of the inflation. It might not because the whole free
it
to
just
play.
gives me like a bad feeling in my stomach, though. You know.
Right, and this is a Korean. The thing that's different about Iron Mace is they're making this for a Western audience, not necessarily like an Asian audience where that would be fine.
Yeah.
And so, that's part of it. But he was also, some people suggested that like it would be better to have gold be, like a number, and but the stash part of the reason you need stash space is it takes up stuff,
It's
and
like
gold.
one of the end game things is building your stash space, isn't it? So
Right, but I feel like you could still do that and have a meaningful. You can still have loot bags and stuff like that, and chests. Like you would have a
yeah,
max
like Tarkov,
capacity.
right? Like the money in Tarkov is way easier to handle. You
I've
just
actually
buy
never
a
played Tarkov, so I don't know how that
uh,
works.
so you have like money cases and you put your money in there. But there's also like scav junk boxes, so like all the quest items can fit in there, and then you have weapon cases. So it's basically the same as Tarkov, but it's not just the same as Dark and Darker, but it's not just gold that can fit in these containers. It's like armor, miscellaneous stuff, meds. There's a med case. So I think that would be fun. I don't think that's the most exciting like gameplay loop, but it definitely would add.
Like I can't tell you the last time I picked up gold. Like honestly, like when I was in the dungeon.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's a waste. It's a waste of time, especially if you're PvP. And that's another complaint I have with the game. Like with the marketplace, nothing matters. Like yeah, you can quest and you can like unlock these crafts and stuff, and Arena kind of made that useful because you need minted stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing matters in the game other than gold. And you don't have to do any quests. You can just go and kill people. If you're good at the game, you kill people, you get gold. You can just do whatever you want. So, from a design point of view, I would like in Tarkov, I think you can't buy certain things from the flea market. There's, I don't know exactly. I can't remember how it works, but yeah, there's more of a gameplay loop because they handle that better.
That's fair. I was thinking more along the lines of like, if you buy a gold chest or if you have a gold chest in your inventory that still takes up like slot space, it would just up your max capacity. But like the gold would, because if you think about it, your stash base can only hold, I think, like somewhere around 10,000 gold if you have like, all gold bags. And so like each gold bag you bought would increase your max capacity. Like it would still be the same thing. It just wouldn't take up inventory space, right?
I mean, we basically have a fix for that. My system is just I get like 8k worth of gold storage from coin banks, and then you just diversify, buy like gold or gold keys or whatever. Right? And then I always, because my kits are so cheap, I can always buy a kit or multiple kits. And then when I get over that like storage space, I would just buy it down. I think that's what most people do. It's not like a secret.
Interesting. That's fair. So kind of getting back a little bit more to some of the questions and answers. So like, what's your favorite mob to use to parry? If you have to have a pocket mob, like you have
favorite mob?
Yeah, for a pocket parry.
My favorite, I think, like a defining mob parry was the Skullbat, one of my earlier videos that like blew up before I was monetized on YouTube, by the way. So, yeah, I think Jay Griffith watched it. Is it Griff, yeah, or Griff?
I think Griff.
I should know that. Griff, yeah. He watched that on stream, so that was kind of like a big moment where I was on the Ruins bridge and I parried a Skullbat on the top, and then carried that and fell off and landed on a player. So that's like, that memory stays with me. Favorite mobs to parry? Anything a bit weird and different, like the Ruins sub bosses, or anything, or any of the big bosses. But like the Trusted Skelly Footman, it's 100%. You're always gonna land it. He's always there for you. So he's my go-to. He's my boy.
The shield ones are actually pretty reliable now. And I kind of like them because I don't know, for some reason I've had trouble with the Footman. I think it's just me, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
what's your lineup? You tell me. I'll coach you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
What's your lineup?
That's probably just me, though. But like,
tell me how you go about it.
So like there's the one where you have to aim up or left, right? So they'll do like a slightly, what is it? The right arm is slightly elevated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's obviously the top down one. For some reason, the top down one is inconsistent for me.
I'm gonna make your life so much better. You can do one parry that catches both attacks.
Enlighten me, because I didn't realize that there was two different positions for that. Well,
get in kind of tight, crouch, and just aim up and left on the shoulder, and you'll catch both.
The left shoulder, like you pass the left shoulder pad.
Just aim up and high, yeah. Like you can watch any of my videos. I've parried them that way for like 9 months.
You're catching the handle on that though, right? Like you're catching with the tip of your blade, basically, is what you're going.
No, you're just crouching low, and you're putting your sword above you. And like, no matter, they're always going to catch the blade. I don't know how to explain it. I could run the game up and show you, but it would take too long. Yeah, I can hit you up later. Just watch any of my videos. Right, parry them. I do it all the time, and I always use the same lineup. But you'll never mess it up if you go for my approach.
Interesting. So, what would you say would be your least weapon in the game? Like your least favorite weapon?
Least used, least favorite.
Yeah.
The spell book, because it's like actually, I mean, you can parry spells. My least favorite weapon to like go up against.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna just keep it like melee weapons, I guess, because It's a bit more relatable. Um, Morning Star's up there. That thing is just impossible. I parried it. I can parry it, but like consistently, I haven't figured it out. Rondo dagger. It's so
Yeah.
hard. It's just like you don't have much room to work with, and they're just stuffing you. And once they're on you, like they're stabbing like through where your block goes up. So it's kind of impossible.
That light parry is also like really annoying to get off, right? Like,
Yeah, to be honest, you get better at the timing. Like the dink becomes entwined with you, and it just becomes like natural to like time it. But yeah, it can be tough. Yeah, I would say Rondo and Morningstar. I can't think too much about other weapons that kind of awkward.
if you could change one thing about the longsword, what would that be? Or maybe two things about the longsword.
Um, I think it's in a pretty good spot. I wouldn't want it to get buffed more, um, because it already excels in what it's good at, and I play off meta, so I don't want my thing to be the broken stuff that everyone's using because it would kind of it would just dirty what I enjoy doing. Um, but then I also hear people crying for nerfs about that, and I just would say it's a skill issue. If you're using like an easy to parry weapon and you're not like trying to go around the longsword or not aware that your weapon's easy to parry, like the longsword has so many ways to not lose to it. Like if you're losing to it, like I don't know what to say. So yeah, it doesn't need a nerf. I think SDF is actually pretty based in that respect, where he understands that. He said it's not going to get nerfed, but if it does because of the Reddit complainers, I don't know, man. I don't know where it will be, but I think it's fine. Honestly, right now it's not a good weapon, but it's a fun weapon, so I think that's great.
I gotcha. So getting a bit more to like your own personal character lore. So like you, for your character, like how, like, what would you say what's your character's like motivation in like this world of Dark and Darker, right? So like,
Hmm.
I sort of imagined, I don't know if this is how I'm gonna do it, but I've thought about it. That this might be interesting. Is
Hmm.
like Dark and Darker is basically like a new, there's a lot of like grizzled adventures that come through, and a lot of the labyrinths have already been explored, right? But one
Yeah.
thing that's different about this one is that the labyrinth, it's like a new um, dungeon basically that hasn't been solved, and when people get to the end, it changes and it resets, right? That could be an
It's
interesting
like
type of
some
mystery,
like
right?
Korean
Well,
virtual game with I don't know. Well, I watched what was the game I watched? The show I watched.
solo leveling. I don't know. I don't really watch
No,
Korean shows.
it was like Squid Games, but it was like I don't know. But anyway, to answer your question, you're basically are you turning players into like characters and writing
Yeah,
about them? That's why this interview exists.
yeah.
Where would my lore in that be?
Yeah. So like for your so like for your character, right?
Yeah.
Like what would motivate your character to want to like come to a place that's like dark and darker,
Okay.
basically rags on your back, right? Because that's what everyone starts off with.
So, I think my style has always been like being creative. Hence the PvE parries. Like I want to parry everything in the game and learn how to. So it's just about like it's a combination of like trying to perfect something and trying to explore that thing in the pursuit of perfection. It's like a creative pursuit. Um, I think me personally, I sort of have um a bit of like a justice boner, which is a weird thing to say, but
Sure.
like unjust, unfair things in the world sort of affects me like quite personally, even if it doesn't actually affect me. Um, like the cheating situation. I don't run into that many cheaters, but like that got me down, and that's like an injustice I can see that I would love to like eradicate. Without getting like too personal, in the UK we have I say it's not that personal, but I'll tell you my situation. We have like strict immigration and visa laws. Don't worry, this isn't going to turn into some like racist rant. But my girlfriend is Colombian,
Okay.
and I think her visa isn't going to get expired. It's going to expire. It won't get renewed, and that's basically because even though I work full time, I don't work in like a big city, so that the government doesn't class me as um, earning enough to like warrant like living with and loving who I want.
Hmm.
And that's we're the only country in Europe that does that. I think maybe in the first world. So like that's a huge motivator for me. I've got to like find extra money. So that's kind of like a big driver for like why I'm investing in my PC, why I want to push through, why I want to get an editor. Um, so it's like it's love, and it's also like I feel like there's an injustice in the world where like the governing bodies are like saying only rich people can afford to like be with who they want to be with. That's like an obvious injustice to me. So like that's something I'm personally fighting, and I think that sort of mindset would carry over to my character.
Interesting. See, that's super. That's very personal. I appreciate you sharing that. Like that's very good. I well, not situation. It's just like
Yeah, the
your
mind the
description.
just mindset for the situation. Yeah, sure, and that's
Interesting.
yeah. I mean, I guess our characters are a reflection on us ultimately. So
Right. So like Neil Gaiman and this, this I don't know if you know who he is or not, but in this writing class I'm taking, it's super interesting. Like he talks about you're using like fiction is basically a bunch of lies to tell a story. And he says the best
mhm.
stories are the ones that are truthful, but you're using lies to tell truth. So how do you do
Yeah,
that, right?
hmm
And so he uses this example of this book he was writing, this children's book he was writing about a dragon, right? Like how do you make something that's like doesn't exist like a relatable thing, right? And so he tells the
hmm
story of how he was him and his two kids were walking through the forest or something, and there was an underground bee's nest, right, or hornet's
hmm
nest, which is a bit worse than bees. And so he told his children to run. Well, he sat there and he got stung almost 50 times.
he was tanking.
Yeah, and so he had to wait till they were up the hill and sat there. And he didn't so much, when he got home, he realized to his horror he dropped his glasses on top of on top of like where he was there. And
Hmm
so the fear that he felt was going back. It wasn't that he got beaten up more or less, or that the dragon beat the hero. It's that
hmm
the in his parallel in his story, the hero, the dragon beat this guy up, but he let him live to let him know who was boss, and then the hero had to
hmm
go back to that. And so he's like, that's how you make things relatable. Is you use a true story and real characters, and those are the things that in like interesting situations, and that's what makes good story and good
Yeah,
fiction is
I agree
exactly
with that.
that. Which is why I'm kind of doing it in this way because I'm a first time writer. I don't expect the first draft or two to be any good, but I think with taking real people as the template for this world, it's going to be way better than if something I could come up with on my own.
Yeah, and people can relate to that as well. If it's real stories, people will find their own meaning.
Right.
I mentioned this to you before we started this, like the Pete interview. I love that. I listened to the
That
Sparky and the
was
Pete one. No, but I love that. I think Pete was.
that was
I mean, it was. In your situation, I would have been.
I didn't know
I
what to
don't know.
say. I'm not gonna lie. Like
You did
Pete's an
you did a good job. Honestly, I think it was a very good interview. I learned a lot about Pete, and I think sort of
amazing
the
character.
vulnerability. Yeah, like it makes for a great character. Like how open he was with you was great, and I think that will translate well
Yeah,
in
that
story terms.
I have a sister who's like that, and it's difficult, growing up and living with someone like that. But
Yeah, yeah,
you,
sure.
you know, like even growing up, and just it's interesting actually. So I come from a pretty big family, and one of the things that happened to me was, like my sister has always been like, pretty frail as a person, and
hmm
so when we're only a couple years apart, so like whenever she was born, my parents basically like sort of forgot that I existed, I guess.
They coddled her. She needed more attention, right? And you had to deal
Just
with that.
health issues, right? She lost, for all intents and purposes, she lost a genetic lottery pretty bad, still has, and so I was kind of like left to myself to do stuff,
hmm
and just kind of like being the servant a little bit, which was kind of annoying growing up. But you
Yes,
know,
I mean, especially as a kid as well, it's sort of hard to.
yeah. But like one thing that was pretty common with that kind of personality is doom looping, right? And like
Yeah.
so I didn't want Pete to be like discouraged, and so, it's been a minute since I've dealt with that. So I really just wanted to encourage him and not get him in a doom loop because that was not fun to deal with.
No, you've
Because
experienced stuff like that, right?
right, and it's just I think I have a bit
I,
more empathy for someone like that. I
no,
don't
I
know.
think he was good. I think he was fine. I think you handled it good as well. So,
Well, I mean, the comments are pretty funny. It's like your favorite words are interesting and gotcha.
I mean, what else can you say? And sometimes people just need to talk, and you need to be there to listen. So, sure and gotcha is great. It means you're still there. You're still listening.
Sure. Um, So for your character, how does your character view combat in the dungeon? Is it like an art, a necessity, or like the moral struggle of having to trudge through like mobs and stuff?
Yeah, it's more like an art. I've always seen melee combat, even in the Team Fortress 2 days, is like a dance. You're goading your partner into a position, or your opponent into a position, so you can act. So you need to like move in a way where you're going to make them move in a way, and then you react in advance to the movement you've made them do. Does that make sense? So it's definitely
Mm,
like an art form and a dance, and yeah, that's how I see combat, melee combat.
sure. Like how would you want your character to interpret the dungeon as existent? Is it like a cursed place where rogues are behind every corner trying to steal your loot? A divine trial against the darkness, or maybe like a chaotic battleground?
I mean, I kind of want to leave that up to you. My I don't want to say, this is how my character should be. This is everything
Sure.
I think it should be. I want to let like you have the creative control on that. I've definitely struggled with landmine rogues and warlocks the most. So maybe there is like um a kind of hatred towards like the darkness and the cheap, dirty tricks of the world. But yeah, I don't want to say like too much on what he should be, or
I
I'll leave
gotcha.
that for you. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be stories about that. So, like, I've had some interesting. I think that they're intriguing ideas to play with. I don't know how it's going to really work out though. But like, say you have this labyrinth, and what makes it unique is it changes constantly. And
Hmm.
typically, like when you get to the bottom and beat the boss, it's like over, right? It's looted, and people move on to the next labyrinth. But this one's like unique in that. Because like when you go down, you get random maps for crypts, right? So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to follow the patch notes of the life cycle of this game. Like originally there's a swarm, and then the mages figure out eventually how to turn that off or how to nullify it, right? But
Hmm.
the dungeon finds a way to just kill you or suffocate you, and then even the doors, right? Like for a long time there would be like portals to go home, right? Which could be like
Hmm.
a there's actually this guy who did a lore video like a year ago when the game first came out. I think maybe the guy sounds like he's maybe like 15, but it's actually pretty good for what it was.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but he like in his story, the portals were actually teleport home scrolls,
Hmm.
right? That would pop up that the mages had made. And so, like a little bit of a continuation of that, like the doors to go down to the dungeons have been forged by previous explorers because the dungeon will shift to like random maps or like
Sure.
random things, and so people have like found ways to carve in to go down, but it's still like nobody really knows why or how it shifts. I guess
So
kind of. Oh, sorry, God.
you were saying it's basically magical runes and previous adventurers are like guiding and setting up the dungeons
Yes,
for the next generation.
yeah, more or less, right? So like like the game's evolved through like circle to no circle to like portal runes that pop up to like maybe the town mages have figured out how to like sort of tame the dungeon a little bit, and so they've carved like these doors to go to these other like parts of the castle to like more control over time, right? They're like fighting the dungeon. I thought it'd be really funny. So I actually got one
Hmm.
peg, funny enough, to agree to do one of these like next month.
He's busy, man. Next month, Jesus. I
Yeah.
thought I was being problematic of like a week.
Well, it's the hol. It's in America. It's the holidays, right? You have Thanksgiving, Christmas, all at once, right? Within like 4 or 5 weeks of each other. So people
Yeah,
travel a lot for that here in America. But
that's fair.
yeah, I actually got owed into say he'd come on. So that'd be interesting to have an Iron Mason floor on. But anyway, I thought it would be really funny to have the like town government be Iron Mace, and like the
Hmm.
reason no one's uncovered this labyrinth is because there's been a huge legal battle, right? Like they can't keep the land deed and they keep losing it.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
love the idea of like the different guilds as well, and
Yeah, yeah.
like all trying to like kind of work together in collaboration to like explore this labyrinth.
Yeah, and so it's
But
like this big legal battle, and then one peg is just the local lawyer.
damn, yeah, he would, or like the mayor or something. I like that a lot. I
It's just
think
funny.
it's good. Do you think Iron Mace? How would they be perceived if they were like the town's?
Like they want to do,
Uh,
like they want to do stuff, like have a tavern, but they just can't because, like, you know, there's a few things. Who knows? There could be some funny story behind that, because like the woodsman, right? So you could also integrate this into like I sort of wanted to follow the chronological like patching of the game as well. Like so
mhm.
Ruins was taken out for a bit and then it reformed it, then it was put back in, right? So you could actually
Yeah,
have
yeah.
that. There's actually a quest in the Woodsman where he has you go kill a bunch of monsters because the ruins have become like overgrown basically. And there's also a quest for the alchemist. Oh, what is it? The anyway, there's a couple of actual quests in the game that are
Hmm.
like there's too many beasts, so you could have it where people discovered the ruins and then the labyrinths and then became overgrown with monsters for a while, and then so the ruins was taken down. They found a shortcut into crypts, and then eventually like we've cleared more of the brush away from the ruins, and that's the reworked current map, right? Like that could totally
Hmm.
make sense.
This the ruins rework is always funny because I don't know if you've heard of Royst. He's
No.
one of the Americans I play with. He's a great wizard player. Really chill guy. Just I watched his videos and I was like, this guy has cool movement. He's good. He's chill, and we became friends. We just commented and all that. But he was like a Crips only player,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like hard pushing PvP on ruins. So like one of us is never happy, right? Because we always have like either the 3 layer system, or I could just play ruins and PvP, or like Crypts, as the first dungeon. So we're always like, it's just kind of symbolic for the player base. Like they're never always going to be happy. Like
Sure.
half of them are always upset. Yeah, but
What do you think
uh,
about the 3 layer system? I prefer 2 layers personally. Like I don't. I think it's too long.
so yeah, I'm not a big PvE guy. I like the Goblin Cave bosses. They're like fun enough, and there's a reason to like fight players as like a objective. Going down to hell, it's just way too much PvE, and I don't have the patience to like do that much PvE farming. I want to fight people. I want to have like fun interactions. It's too long. I'm not a gold farmer. I don't care for it.
So, like one thing I did forget to ask you about was artifacts, like Fulgore. Like have you ever
Hmm.
ran a Fulgore before?
No, I would rather
Really?
bend a Folgore than run it. Just
Really?
because, yeah, like maybe at the end of the wipe, I don't like take donations, or historically I've never like taken donations. Um, Apart from recently, I did take a Grim Slayer. Is that the Zweihander?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a really cool artifact. I think it's the coolest artifact. Shooting lightning from the sky, like it looks amazing. But I wouldn't want to donate that to some meta abuser. Don't want to just hand over gold to like some Rondel fighter. So I just like nah, don't bother. Keep running budget. I get more satisfaction from like killing that meta guy in a cheap kit than I would like left clicking someone down with a photo gore.
Interesting. I mean, it seems like you have a few things left to do in the game. Get. By the way, so I think Fulgore only drops from Warlord. So
Okay.
if you want to get good at war, I think you can also get uniques in normal now, but it's like the percent chance is way less than a high roller. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know either, to be honest.
but yeah, so it sounds like you have Warlord left to do, and then you could get yourself a
Hmm.
full gore, and that would be
Hmm.
like there's still some stuff left to do.
Yeah, maybe like if I had like a good squad that I could consistently play with,
You
and
can play
like
solo.
I yeah, but like I'm just donating it. Like I'm getting two shot by a wizard. Like I'm not even going to use the Folgore in versus the wizard. It's like it just feels.
Well, actually, if you get every season, so this last season, Sonder and SCP Origami actually went on a duo Fulgore run, and they did like
Yeah,
I
I
think
saw that.
they lived like I think 11 or 12 games with their kits. And if you want
That's
to,
awesome.
yeah, you could be like the third trio in there that's not
Yeah,
afraid to use.
I'd do it.
You could be the range guy that's not afraid to bring a bow.
No, 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 no shot, no shot. I'd go in with them. Full going into the end. But
Triple
yeah, if
Fulgore
I
is kind
had
of
people,
insane.
I feel like solo Fulgray is just I'm just donating it. But in a trio where like if you die, your team can pick it up and recover and res you. Like if feels like you're getting more value from your artifact.
Yeah, End of the Wives fun and Sparky Caught was Discord. You should really join that.
I'm gonna join that once we're done for sure.
Yeah. All right. What would you want to be remembered? How would you want your character to be remembered in Dark and Darker?
Uh, I I like to think I've inspired a lot of people to be more creative with what they can parry and how they can turn parries into kills. The how to be remembered.
Like, how would you want to be remembered?
Uh, just as someone who pushed the longsword meta deeper. That's that's what I really care about in the game. Just getting better myself and inspiring other people to be better with the longsword.
To be remembered as one of the original grandmasters, because like in my mind, for the very first, I'm talking like when if the blacksmith first came out, right? There was
Mhm.
obviously the OG Augie Sun himself, and
Mhm.
then you kind of had like a second generation of longsworders. Like Sparky came along. You were started there, I think, before Sparky. I don't, or at least before I like remembered noticing him. And then Lieutenant Sama also did. He was a longsworder guy, or he had a couple
I think
entries into
Sama
this.
was there before me. I remember
I think
watching
so.
Sama's like longsword guide, and that's how I like got to know him. Sparky, I don't know. I discovered him like a few months into my longsword journey, and someone said you should play with Sparky, and we did play once, just briefly. But I don't know when he started. So, but yeah, I definitely second generation. Talking of Oggy, I need to play with Oggy. I've been part of the Crusades when the Wyvern first came out,
Oh, that was so
but I
much
want
fun.
to. Yeah, dude, that was so sick. But I need to play. We keep saying we're going to play with each other, and just schedule in and taking breaks, and we just never do. So,
I
Oggy,
actually
if you're listening to this, let's actually play some time for
I've
sure.
been trying to get him on the last couple of days, and he's just been working or something, so it hasn't really worked out. But
I think he's been sick. I mean, I'm actually in Oggy's Discord, and I think he's been feeling under the weather.
yeah, I'm in a bunch of different discords I joined recently to reach out to people. But yeah, I was supposed to have him on like a week ago. It just hasn't really worked out timing wise. Like I went on a trip recently and stuff. But one thing I'm gonna do, I don't know if he'll watch this before then, but I'm gonna try to get him to narrate at least like the intro to the book or the first chapter. And if he's open to
Damn.
it, yeah, if he's open to it, because he has a good voice, right, for
He has a
audiobooks.
very distinctive voice as well.
Right. And so I play a lot with like, like I have a more of a technical background. So like I'd obviously want to make sure he was compensated, like um I would love to get him to do the whole book, percentage of the royalties or however he wants to do that, or maybe get his permission to, because AI voice cloning is pretty good now. Maybe he'd let me do that. There's some stigma with that. People don't like that, but
It's getting so good. What's the music one? So what is it called? Let me
Suno.
find that real quick. Suno, yeah, they're bringing out like Gen 4,
Oh,
and
really?
oh my god, it's sounding so good. Like the
So
vocals were the main thing that gave it away, and now it's scary, man. But I like it. Yeah.
Really? So, what's funny? Part of the reason this book is being written is I actually wrote down Saunders, well, he's got a crazy story, man. Like, he actually got banned from the game for 6 months falsely, and then Grayson, like, undid it. It's,
What?
oh, yeah. So he's got this crazy arc where basically I wrote the song about him. It's called The Ballad of the Big Iron Blade. It's actually a small album because, I'm a little
It's
musically
like
inclined as well, just
is it
growing
like the
up.
big iron on the hip, but it's like the big iron blade?
No, it's more of a ballad song.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's more of a song that you could listen going down the highway with your windows down, chilling to it type of thing. It's not really serious, but it's kind of. I'll send it to you if you want. It's only like 2 minutes long, but
Do it,
basically
dude.
it's his whole arc of like, it's crazy. So before he right before he got banned, he was learning all the bosses. He mastered Ghost King, Lich, and was about to, about to figure out Warlord. He got Fulgor, Nipalon. We had like basically artifacts for all three of us, right? And so
Hmm.
him and our third man who hasn't been on online, just doing live stuff for like the last 6 months. They were going in duos in high roll, just getting used to the PvP content, and they were wiping lobbies and got permabanned just randomly. Like I was watching them stream on while I was cooking one day on my tablet. I was in Discord and they just get permabanned like out of nowhere. And
The
it's like,
whole squad.
yeah, like well, both of them. And
Yeah,
we
yeah,
we assumed it was due to a bunch of like people just reporting them out of rage reporting. And if you go on Reddit, there's actually like a bit of a banning problem that Iron Mace has. Who knows?
yeah.
But anyway, so fast forward 6 7 months, and we've reached out to the devs, Grayson, and all this, and then Grayson's in chat, and he Sonder just says like, "Hey, can you can I at least have like some red shards to change my name because I got banned falsely?" And so the guy looks at it and he's like, "Oh, the reason you were banned was you shouldn't have gotten permanent. It should have been temporary." But he used like a jump, like we were first learning the game, and apparently he had like a mouse macro for jumping or something on his mouse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, after crouch jump because he couldn't figure out how to do it right when we first started, and that was like months ago. And so it was like, oh, okay, well, my
That's
bad.
pretty crazy that
But
they
yeah,
banned
so
for that.
yeah, but he went to Demigod season 1. He got his first artifacts and then just like got nuked, right? And but he got unbanned and then he went in like season 3. I think we're in 4. I'm not really sure, And so during the time that he was basically banned, right, he learned how to do Warlord solo, High Roller Warlord, got more artifacts, and kind of like had like another hidden character arc, if you want to say that, right? So
Yeah, like it was like a training montage, like
yeah,
Rocky
literally, like
just.
he went on a training bin where we as a squad, as a trio, learned how to do all the bosses in the game and do them efficiently and PvP and do all this crazy stuff, right? Like lower percentage of the player base might do that, and then he gets unbanned. So it's kind of like he got banned from the Fighters Guild for like a bout of shame. It was like
Mhm.
false, and he went on this training arc like Rocky or something, and he came back, and now he's got all his stuff back, And so
Is
it's
like accused of witchcraft, and the guild just
literally, yeah, yeah,
yeah
yeah.
dismissed him. That's so funny. I'd be down to play with you guys and your friends. Like, if you want to do like running a longsword thing at some point. I
Yeah,
need to
that
play with more people. Like the dungeon is just playing solo. It's not the most
it's kind
balanced
of
game mode.
boring.
So yeah, it's nice to play with other people and network and yeah.
I'm pretty bad. Like so I only play low roller and I play cleric because it was easy. Like cleric and barb.
My cleric is like an old WoW friend. Shout out to Pinky. Um, and like it takes him 10 seconds to heal me when I'm like standing still.
Right,
So
yeah.
like don't worry about. I like playing with all creeds. It doesn't matter how good people are. I don't play to win, so I just play to improve.
Yeah. It's been a minute since I've done trio, so like I've lost a little bit of synchronicity with some of my old teammates, but all right. We've been this is probably like the longest interview I think I've done so far. Like the last one was Lord Collector, like an hour 30 maybe. So we're like
Longer than the Todd Father interview.
yeah, that one was I've normally kept them about an hour because people have like stream schedules and stuff.
Oh,
Um,
I said I can go forever. So it's yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, this has been pretty fun. I
I
also,
enjoyed, man. It's been cool talking to you.
yeah, I'll definitely. You know what's interesting is you're the only person that I emailed, that responded. Funny enough,
Through the email.
yeah, because some content creators don't have discords that they're in. It's like Arcane Armor didn't have one. He has the is it Hold the Line podcast? There's the Darkest Hour and then like Hold the Line. I get them mixed up.
Darkest Hour is Soma
Yeah, so
and Jay.
Hold the Line is King Kanabi, Arcane Armor, sometimes Odin, and then So Bad Strange.
Yep.
And then I think recently they've had Galoctane and oh, what's the other guy? He's a cleric main. I should know him. I don't remember, but I tried to get on there and they never got back with me. But I'm kind of hoping with a few more interviews. Once I get one peg, I'll probably have enough street cred to
Yeah,
Well,
you're working your way up fast. You're speed running the.
I know it's kind of funny. It's like, do you want infamy? Just it's kind of an easy ask. It's like, hey, can I have an hour of your time and I'll put you in a book? You don't have to do any work, right?
True, yeah. The project sounded cool. That's why I got back to you. Like, I get quite a few emails like, try this game, play this game, or promote this thing, and I'm not that
Really?
big. Yeah, I get quite a few, and like, I never take them up on it. The only promotion I took up was Huel, which is like
That's
it's like a
gamer fuel,
UK
right?
based. It's like nutritionally complete like food that's like powder form and flavored, and they do like daily greens, things like that. But it's like a product I already used, so I was like, hell yeah, like I'll do that.
That's interesting. I wonder if they like look at how many like watch time you have on average, and that's how they reach out. Like I've always been curious about that.
Yeah, well, it's like they're not paying me. I get like commission on sales I make,
Oh, it's low effort for them. It's like
so it's like they don't lose anything. So,
interesting.
but they messed up my code for the first like month. So I
Really?
made a video and got nothing. So yeah, shout out to Huel.
Huh. That's funny. I've actually done so. Like I've sort of hopped jobs and careers a lot.
hmm
Um, like I've done. This might dox me a little bit, but I've done marketing. I was a recruiter in college for a minute. I've done, tech work. I've done a lot of random things.
Yeah, I don't know who you are from that. Don't worry, you're safe.
You can probably find me on LinkedIn if you look hard enough. But I have a little bit of a security background. I've just done a lot of random things as a bored
Yeah.
person
hmm
growing up in the internet. Um, that's interesting though. So
So
like,
yeah, go on.
I've heard on I think it was Soma's podcast that you work at a bean factory as like a
Yeah,
scientist.
yeah, I'm not that smart. You probably figured that out from talking to me, but I'm definitely not a scientist. I work in a lab, but I don't actually work in a bean factory. I say that just so people don't try and figure out where I'm
Oh,
from, because if I mention the specific lab I'm in or
right.
like the field, like
You probably have
I'm
some
in the
NDA or
UK,
something, right? Like
it's not that big of a country. Like you could figure out where it's from, or
I
yeah.
just I was just scratching my head like, is he like a flavor scientist? Like, you know what I mean?
I do love beans though. That's true. I've been eating beans, making the bean gains a long ass time. So
The bean
yeah,
games.
that's true.
Have you
Yeah,
se-
man.
have you seen that blender? Have you seen that short film like called A Bean? I think it's basically made by this guy. Um, I was into 3D animation for a minute as a teenager for a couple months, but there's this short. It's called A Bean. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. The
The
Bean.
bean.
Yeah, but basically, this single guy made this movie, and he made like two or three of them because they were like semi-successful. He might have been from the UK as well. The Bean movie. Is that it? The Bean movie?
Mr. Bean.
No,
Mr.
it's
Bean's
not Mr.
holiday.
No, 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 no. It's
I
animated.
love that.
Killer
Oh,
Bean. Killer Bean. That's what it is.
let me look this up. Killer
Killer Bean.
Bean.
Yeah, yeah. It's this guy. It started
God
off in
damn.
like 2000. Oh, hold on. Mute this. It started off in like 2000.
It's a game now or what?
I don't know. I haven't kept up with it at all. I've just heard of it. Yeah, 15 years ago, Killer Bean. But it's this guy who just started randomly animating this Bean character. And he got better and better at it. It's kind of been a meme, you know?
What kind
And
of
it
bean is
is.
that? I should know. I should know
It's a
working in a bean
game now,
factory.
too. That's funny.
I'm on the wiki, directed by Jeff Liu, written by Jeff Liu. He's just everything. It's like
Yeah,
10
it's a
different roles in it,
solo.
and it's just all him, yeah.
It's just solo guy. Yeah. So whenever you said you worked in a bean factory, that's what I thought of because it's just been a meme in my mind for a while. You know.
I wish he had a $1 million budget on that. So who knew?
I mean, $1 million isn't a lot of money. Like with modern inflation in most Western countries, it's like like to get a house in America, right? It's like 250 is like average now,
How
right?
many bedrooms? You got so much more land.
Two.
Like I
It
feel like
is.
you get way much more in America than we get over in the UK.
I have heard that from people. I had some people from Belarus that in the apartment
hmm
complex in college that I lived at,
hmm
and they were saying that like everything is like larger over here, and then when you go to Texas, it's like supersized, right? Which is true.
Yeah, you still get much more for your money in Belarus though. You just buy the land, build your own house, like for
Right.
peanuts. Yeah,
It's like if you can make American money and then figure out how to like live somewhere else, like in Asia.
that's the life hack. Yeah, I mean, I'm from the UK, so I think obviously the American wage is more, but we have like healthcare and things, and you
True.
guys still are on more overall, all things considered, but we're still on a Western wage. If I could earn my Western wage and take it to like Indonesia or something, life would be kushti. Longswording in Indonesia, yeah, that'd be the dream.
Right. You're just streaming like 12-hour days, and the one day you just never hear from you ever again.
Got my bread, yeah, got my beans, and I'm gone.
Got the
No,
beanie.
I don't intend to do that. Like, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't playing video games, like, as a
Right.
hobby and creating. Like, it feels that creative niche, or that there's something inside of me that wants to create. Like, I don't get that satisfaction from working.
Right. Yeah, that's something I've sort of struggled with a little bit as well. Is like like I don't know if you want to call it a midlife crisis. I'm a little bit older, like I imagine that you are.
Well,
I'm
I
not
don't know.
40 or anything, right? But like,
If we're probably the same age, I think we honestly, you could tell me your number. I won't
uh,
judge. I think you're
sure.
probably a year older than me.
I recently turned 30.
Dude, you're so off the point on this. I'm turning 33
Oh my. Yeah,
soon,
it seems
yeah.
like the average age of the people who enjoy Dark and Dark are a little bit like around that age. You know what I
I can
mean?
tell you because I have YouTube demographic analytics on the demographics. You
Interesting.
want to know my secret numbers, the audience tab?
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
24 to
13 to
34.
17 year old, right? 0%.
Wow.
Could you believe that? There's more 45 to 54-year-olds, which is only 1%. But the majority is in our range is 25 to 34. That's over 50% of my audience.
Yeah, I believe it.
And then
That's similar to
yeah, and then
mine.
18 to 24 is like 30%. So I would probably with those numbers say it's around the mid to late 20s. It's like the average.
Yeah, because I feel like if you enjoy Dark and Darker, you've enjoyed some aspect of Dark Souls, or like simpler games of like hack and slasher. Because like
Yeah.
I think Todd Father kind of told me, or maybe Lord Collect, I don't remember, but like it might have even been Skinny Pete. I don't remember. I've done so many at this point that this game was kind of like Skyrim. If you've ever played that, right? Like I assume you probably played Skyrim.
Yeah, I play Skyrim. It wasn't Skinny Pete. I watched Sparky and Skinny Pete, the
Okay,
interviews.
it's probably Todd then.
So
But he's like the appeal of this game to him was like this was basically almost like the promise of going into a dungeon with your friends because like Elder Scrolls Online, like I played it for like I don't know 10 hours, and I was
mhm.
kind of imagining in my head like, oh, this is just going to be Skyrim, but
Yeah, I was
co-op,
exactly the same. I was so hyped for it, and I
right?
got invited to the beta and got my friend in the beta, and I was like, because I
Ugh.
played World of Warcraft as well, so I played like a great MMO, like classic World of Warcraft is a great MMO. And I was big on Skyrim, so was my friend. And then Elder Scrolls Online came out. We played it, and we were like, what the frick is this?"
Right.
It was not a great MMO, and it wasn't like a great like Elder Scrolls game.
I've heard it's better now, but like it's something to get used to, right? Like it's not. I actually don't really like World of Warcraft. I think the grinding's too high. Like I played Alliance, and that was
Are you
kind of.
classic or like retail?
So we did classic, but it was like one of those private server things that my friends were
Sure.
in, and so there was like boosted rates and stuff a little bit. But even with that, it was like, oh, if you don't show up and have this exact kit, because right, play after work and kind of thing, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't consume my life. And so it would always be like, oh, if you don't have this exact build, or if you miss one heal as a healer, then you're like, oh, the voice joined, right? Almost said my name there. And so it was just kind of like, okay, well, this is lame. And then I went to Horde, and I was like, wait, I can get a gun, and I can just kind of do whatever I want. There's so much
Wait,
infinitely
a
better.
gun?
Yeah, like one of the characters was like a hunter.
Oh yeah, you can play Hunter. Yeah, that's not Horde exclusive. You can have Night Elf, Dwarf, Hunter.
I didn't realize that,
Yeah.
but my experience of that was like, oh, you go over here and people are less serious. This is way better. But
Yeah, on our role playing server, like it was kind of strange. We had like the Alliance was the majority faction, and they had like before the servers even went live, they like made all the discords and they like tried to like police the server.
wait,
And I was
what?
part of like it was crazy. Like if you were on the Alliance and you didn't like follow their rules, you got blacklisted from any kind of like raid.
They're that big?
I can send you like videos of like a guy called Garrick who was like a crazy Swedish guy in the Horde and the shenanigans he got up to. But we like basically griefed these guys because they were trying to police and be super serious, but they weren't good at the game. And then we had like the elite like PvP guys on our side, like smaller numbers, but we could do so much damage. And like the end game of World of Warcraft is like getting good raid logs, so you like clear the raids faster, you get like the best stats and do the most damage. To do that, you need to get world buffs and like log out to preserve the buffs. So when you start the
Oh
raid, you
wow.
have like all these buffs. So you like collect the world buffs and then log your character out, and you can't play it for the week until the raid resets, and then you do the raid. So we would spend our time hunting these players out in the world who were like had valuable buffs, right? They were like collecting buffs and trying to log their character out, and we'd find them in the world and kill them, and like they'd lose all their buffs, and it was like griefing basically. But like it was like a defined approach to like this kind of policing of the servers. And
Interesting.
yeah, I was like a proper neat at that time. I was putting a lot of hours in, but it was definitely an interesting gaming experience.
Yeah, I had something there that's kind of funny. There was something similar. So I played Star Citizen, which, by the way,
I played as well. Yeah,
it's apparently coming. If you don't know, it apparently has an end date. 2 years from now, it's coming out.
surely it's coming out.
No, it's like official. It's like 1.0. It's they're done with the single player game. Well, they're polishing it, so who knows what that means. But like, they're basically like 2 years from now. Star Citizen 1.0 is coming out like retail, and then the single player game, which has the one that's probably actually going to work properly, right? But
I didn't even know. Yeah, I'm not keeping up with it. I didn't
yeah,
know they were even
yeah.
doing single
I
player.
just toss them $100 every year for a cool ship, right?
Okay,
But
fair enough.
but I was in a Star Citizen clan in like 2019, 2018. So I don't even remember how I got in here. I'll be honest. Like, I was a little obsessed with it at the time. I was going through a space game phase, and like a requirement to be in this clan was like, are you in the top 100 players for like the PvP thing, or not
Yeah.
PvP, or AI versus bots or whatever, right? But like they would purge their Discord constantly. Like they ran it like a military org. Like if you weren't
Hmm.
flying 10 hours a week, they banned you, right?
And you managed to like dodge that,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
you were?
For a little bit. So I was active. Then school came around, and I got kicked out a couple times. I just didn't have time to play, right? But that's
Hmm.
fine. But these guys were like, it's like you said, a smaller group of people who were actually really like quite good. And so because we're a pirate organization, nobody likes us, right?
Yeah, sure,
Um,
sure, sure.
and so there's this crazy thing that happened with the org where there was a bit of like, a little bit of wokeism maybe, where people tried to like, oh, we're a pirate faction, but we're a good pirate faction, and the leader was like, no, we're just gonna kill people and take their money, even if
Yeah,
But anyway, so we got good enough at the game where like other orgs would come hunt us like specifically, and so like there was this one thing where like there's a bit of policing, speech policing going on back then too, but in the small little subgroup. But you'd have these like 4,000 man orgs and only like 20 people would play, and so we filled up an entire server one time of they literally just hunted us down, and because we were actually practiced flying in formation, and like everyone who was good had these dual joysticks with like custom
yeah,
switches
I
and oh
remember.
my
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
like crazy setups.
That's why I didn't take the game that serious because I was like, I'm not buying all this stuff, and I felt like I couldn't compete. But I know you can, but I was like, I'm not bothering. It's too much.
There's a couple guys with mouse and keyboard like myself, but like eventually they'll like they were so obsessive that they'd buy you joysticks if you were in there for like a few months,
Damn.
right?
Okay.
So I actually got this joystick set up, and I learned how to fly stick. It is better, but it's just
Like a
anyway.
learning curve.
So they had like three capital ships at the time, right? Like I think the Hammerhead was one of the bigger ships, or maybe like the Polaris was out, and so
Yeah.
we had all these like tactical flight. This doesn't really matter, but anyway, we basically whooped them so bad that they had three capital ships, and our like 20-man squad, like you literally couldn't join the server because it was server capped, and we destroyed all their capital ships in public. Like they had some streamers on or whatever, and we didn't lose a single man because like dude, some of our guys were so disgustingly good. You know how there's locational damage on the shields for ships?
Yeah. Yep.
It's
Yep.
like front, back, forward, up, down. This guy literally understood his ship so well. He rotated his ship at the perfect speed as he was getting shot at with like a turret. Okay, and he would just power the front of his shield, the next part of his shield, the next part of his shield, and just rotate and fire at an angle. And he would wait till his shield would completely deplete almost, and then flip to the next one. And he rotated the shield charger and never took damage while dishing out damage to the other guy. And the guy swore this guy swore he was cheating. But he was literally
He just cracked.
Literally just cracked. Right. And so that group was interesting to run with. Like those guys are hardcore.
It's my experience of like clans like that. I played New World when it first came out, and I had to like apply for this clan, and
right, same
it was
here.
super serious. And it was like your experience. I had to show them like I was like one of the discoverers of like this like classic WoW like tech, and like I discovered it like 6 months before it became public, and I had to like do a proper gaming CV. And then when I got in there,
they weren't that good.
They were all trash. Yeah, there was like 5 good players like who were like in the same situation as me who like applied, and we made our smaller group.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, never again. Yeah, I guess there's a lesson to be learned there somewhere.
I think this group was like the exception to that, maybe just because the guy who ran it was ex-military, and like basically everyone who was in there was like, oh yes, I'm either Royal Air Force retired, or I'm like, UK, just some version of the UK Air Force, right? Or US Air Force. So all those guys were old retired guys that had money and time to build these ship stick stuff,
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I believe it. There's definitely, I mean, that comes down to like the previous management thing we spoke about, where leadership is so important, and that comes down to like the recruiting phase as well, which I guess is where my guild sort of failed. They just let too many people in who weren't qualified, I guess. But it's when we first started the interview, you mentioned Star Citizen. It's the guy who got me on Star Citizen is the same guy who got me into Dark and Darker.
wait,
He takes
really?
Star Citizen super serious, yeah.
I just don't think the game's until they quit wiping it. I'm not playing it.
Yeah, I haven't been keeping up. I just play if he wants to play. So sort of that situation.
There's a YouTuber I watch that does like interesting story videos, but that's about it.
I feel like we've lost all the listeners.
Yeah,
I feel like,
probably.
what do they thought? This isn't no longsword conversation. Yeah.
Well, you're just an interesting person to talk to and just easy to talk with. And at the end of the day, it's my project, so I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Hell yeah! Thanks, man. And if you have any questions about anything, you can just message me. Like,
Oh, for sure, yeah.
something more you want to find out, yeah, or like you're not sure where a character should go, or yeah, just ask.
Yeah. All right. We've been at this a couple hours, and I actually have someone else to interview after this. Like, I'm actually interviewing Ryan 7 days a week. So
6 days a week.
yeah, I always say 7 days a week or something like that.
You're gonna piss him off out the gate.
Really?
Yeah, I love Ryan. By the way, he's one of the streamers I've like been loosely. I muted myself. Loosely like collaborating with, but not really. And I don't do that enough. So tell him I said hi
I will.
if you would.
Does he still do this podcast with Soapy? Seriously?
No, they stopped that because with Wilson. Wilson was
Oh.
the one uploading stuff. Yeah, but I'm sure you can ask about that. I'm actually interested to know
Because
sort of how Wilson's doing.
I like theirs. It was just annoying as a listener to like hear the combat sounds in the background instead of
Yeah, it was a unique twist because they already had like 2 big genres in there, but I think they
their
shouldn't have.
topics were better though. I think than some of the other podcasts.
Yeah, as a podcast, it did. I don't know. I don't have that much time to like listen to podcasts and stuff, so I only really go on the Darkest Hour if I'm going to be on there. Might listen to an episode before, but
I like them all.
yeah. I mean, if you have like time in the day where you can just listen, like you go for a walk or something, or at the gym, then it's great. But yeah, like if you're at the gym, you don't want to be hearing the Dark and Darker combat sounds. So maybe they should have
Yeah.
reworked that, but yeah. I'll let you head off then, so you can talk to Ryan.
All right, man. I really appreciate this. I'll definitely have to hit you up with some of the other crew, and because they're normally on like like what time is it there for you now? Probably like 8 or 9,
Yeah, half 7.
half past 7. Yeah.
You're
So
doxing yourself big time now. Now I know you're like East Coast.
yeah.
I know where you work. I know your name. Like you've screwed yourself.
I don't care. It's whatever.
No, I'm only joking. I want to meet your longsword friend for sure.
Oh
So
yeah,
let's
he
do
might
that.
be on later. I'll hook you up with him. He's gonna be excited to meet you.
Yeah, well, I'm putting my PC together like tonight, but tomorrow that would be cool. I'd be well up for that.
Yeah, let's do that tomorrow. All right, man. I really appreciate it, Sookie. It's been great following you and finally getting to meet the man, the myth, the legend himself.
Appreciate that, man, and best of luck with your project.
All right, man. You too. You have a good one.
Take care, man.